Okay. So hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the EduphoreIAS, the Hindu analysis. Today is the 15th of June 2023 and we are starting with the first page as usual we do. Fine. So let us start with the first page, that is front page. So first page देखते हैं हम क्या important है आज के लिए, ठीक है? Because first page is important in the sense that not everything here is to be read, but it gives you certain idea, line of idea you can say, that what exactly to read inside the pages. Fine, apart from editorials and all. So on the left and right side you might find certain things which might which you need to cover on the inside pages. Fine, chalo. So first is, let us see what is important for us. So I think nothing here. Politics, ED has arrested a particular politician or minister, you can say, of course. Retaliatory strike by village guards leaves 9 dead in Manipur. Okay, so Manipur has been in news, from the last 2 months. You can see Manipur even today it is in news because of its own set of violence and all. So retaliatory strike by village guards. Village guards are basically the kind of of course they are the guards. So basically they provide let us say security or protection at the level of villages, and basically these guards are formed out of the village this community only, you can say, from the community only, the persons belong to that particular village or community itself. Fine. So this is what happened in the Manipur. Retaliatory strike by village guards leaves 9 dead. You know what's going on in Manipur. We have discussed a lot about this, that two sections, it's an ethnic conflict between Meiteis and the Kukis. Fine. And alongside Kukis, there are 2-3 other tribal groups as well. So they are on the one side, but primarily it is the conflict between Kukis and Meiteis. Fine. Apart from that, Gujarat on alert with cyclone Biper Joy set to make landfall today. We have already discussed it, fine, even in detail. So let us not again go into that. Okay. Okay. So till now nothing as important, you can say. Okay. Okay. But this has been categorized as severe cyclonic storm. Remember. Okay, which is wind speed predicted to be in the range of 125 km to 135 kilometers. Fine, gusting at somewhere around 145 kilometers. So this is classified as severe cyclonic storm. Remember this much. Fine, is a category. Another miscellaneous fact here is, you see here ED arrested a Tamil Nadu minister, and yesterday only, after this arrest, Tamil Nadu withdraws consent to CBI, that is general consent. There are two sets of consent, general consent and specific consent. So whenever CBI wants to start an inquiry into a particular, let us say, state, so there state needs to provide general consent to the CBI to go further and inspect or inquire the case. Fine. But there is a specific consent as well, which can be given by courts, even if this general consent has been denied by respective states. Even though CBI can proceed with the inquiry and all investigations in a particular state, provided that it has been granted a specific assent by the courts. Fine, either Supreme Court, High Court or other courts. Okay, chalo. So second page, more or less about the local news. Okay, so not that important. Okay, next page is mostly you find the political news. Okay, again not that important. Okay, I mean not important. Then further, when further you see the next page की अगर हम बात करें तो states. So again this is related to states. Now this is important fact for us, fine. As far as exam is concerned, Tamil Nadu withdraws general consent granted to CBI, permission denied states that have withdrawn general consent to the CBI to prove cases. This is very, very important. You see 3 to 5 and 3 to 5, 10 states are there which has already, you know, denied this general consent, including Tamil Nadu as well. So in total there are 10 states. Tamil Nadu, mostly you see these are the states governed by opposition parties, fine. Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Kerala, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Punjab, Rajasthan, Telangana and West Bengal, fine. All are ruled by what? Opposition states, opposition parties basically, ठीक है. ठीक है. So I have already told you this is what has been mentioned here, that Tamil Nadu has withdrawn the general consent given to the central CBI under section 6 of the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, under which act this CBI has been established, allowing the agency to investigate cases without its permission in the state. ठीक है. So you can see what happened. ED arrested a minister and after that this was a reaction, fine. So you can understand the level of politics going on in the country. Okay, nothing more to comment on that. So SC crashes, no need to go into this. Congress, okay, again politics and politics only, let us not go into that. Okay, further again politics and all. Now you see panel 6 people's suggestion for uniform civil code in Uttarakhand. So more or less the current establishment, you know, came up in the at the center, you know, with 3-4 major agendas, fine. Article 370 abolishment, Ram Mandir, Ram temple construction, and one of the even triple talaq and all, and one of the major you know agenda, or you know what has been mentioned in the manifesto of the current establishment was this UCC as well, Uniform Civil Code. So left with the just the you know the only manifesto mentioned thing which this current establishment promised in its manifesto. So you might expect this, you know, UCC coming up before the elections as well, fine. So this again going to be, you can say, politically motivated as well, but this is a need of ours as well, fine. Nothing bad in that. So we must have a uniform civil code, fine, transacting the religious and the personal laws especially, ठीक है. So उत्तराखंड ने constitute की committee. So of course panel ने क्या suggestion मांगा है from uniform civil code. Even the law commission, the 22nd law commission of India has, you know, asked for people's you know citizens suggestions over, and just yesterday only it released its press note, fine, related to that. So you can we will definitely keep track on this, because this is an evolving issue and an important one as well, fine, because this is being covered under DPSP article 44 related to UCC, where the constitution asks the states, you know, center to endeavor for, you know, a uniform civil code for all the citizens of India or the country, fine. So this is what in line with the constitution, article 44 UCC. Okay. So finally we have landed on the most important page, that is the editorial page, page number 8, and we will start our discussion from here. And this is related to the next finance commission will have a tough task. Why so? Why next commission would be finance commission would have a tough task? A very good piece of article written by, you know, a good insight by D. Subbarao, Dhubri Subbarao, former RBI governor, fine. So a good piece of article, especially as far as your fiscal federalism is concerned, fine. GS2 especially, fine. Even GS3, certain part of economic concepts apply here, ठीक है. So fiscal federalism, fine. Okay, so what is there in this article? Let me first brief you about that, give you a snapshot of this, what he is discussing. So this is, you know, a general thing that whenever next finance commission is to be constitutionally constituted. Before that, let us say current finance commission, 15th finance commission, award period is 2021 to 26, means fiscal year 20 up to 26, means 2025-26. So for the next, after that period 26 to 31, let us say this fiscal year, we will be having a 16th finance commission, but the process of appointing this finance commission starts 2-3 years priorly. Okay? So he is saying that in next few months government is going to appoint next, that is 16th finance commission. Fine. So he underlines certain challenges which is could be there before the finance commission. Fine. Alongside that, he mentions certain issues within the fiscal federalism where the center and the states need to cooperate. Alongside that, he also suggests for the this finance commission regulations or recommendations, especially on, let us say, freebies. Fine. Alongside that, on cesses and surcharges, which has been used in the recent times by the central government, you can say more often than not. So of course these are some areas where of course he is that's why he says that the next finance commission will be having a tough task on this basis. So let us start with the this article. Okay, so the government will appoint a finance commission in the next few months to determine how much of the centre's tax revenue should be given away to states. This is basically, the basic mechanism is under Article 2. Okay. Under Article 280 of the Constitution, the President of India, Article 280, under Article 280 of the Constitution, the President of India appoints Finance Commission every 5 years. Fine. In order to regulate or take care of the relations, especially the fiscal relations or fiscal federalism aspect of the country. Fine. So for this purpose, he is saying the next few months, currently we have 15th Finance Commission award under operation. So next he is talking about is the 16th Finance Commission. फाइन, आप लोगों को पता है 15th फाइनेंस कमीशन के चेयरमैन एन.के. सिंह हैं, ठीक है, थे, एंड 16th फाइनेंस कमीशन के कौन होगा देखेंगे. ठीक है. So next few months to determine how much of the centre's tax revenue should be given away to states. Of course, the core function of finance commission is to devolve the tax revenues from the center to the states. Fine. And other functions, miscellaneous functions as well. Fine, because also give suggestion to the president related to the this panchayats and municipalities revenue generation as well, how they can raise their own source of revenue. Fine. Alongside that, it also takes care of certain grants in aid as well. Fine, for the needy states, or you can say this revenue deficit grants. Fine. Okay. So with this much of background, let us start with this article. So, Finance Commission determine how much of the central tax revenue should be given away to states. That is called vertical share, of course. So under Finance Commission, we have two sets of sharing. First is vertical. Vertical is like this. Okay, change the. Okay, so vertical is from center to states, and horizontal means we are talking about between states. Okay, between states here and here. So this is a horizontal distribution, this is a vertical distribution. Fine. That is the devolution from center to states and devolution between the states. So these are two different things, that what parameters or terms of reference would be there for this thing and what would be the terms of reference or parameters for this thing. That is horizontal devolution of your resources or tax revenues. Fine. Okay. So vertical share and how to distribute that among the states. So first is how to distribute revenue between center and state, that is called vertical share, and second thing is how to distribute that that share or that tax revenue among the states, that is called horizontal sharing. Fine. So vertical sharing and horizontal sharing. Horizontal means at same level, vertical means two different levels. So it gives insights about pre-reform and post-reform. In pre-reform, the Finance Commission recommendations were not that critical because the center had other ways to compensate states. So ये कह रहे हैं कि pre-reform period means before 1991 जो फाइनेंस कमीशन की रिकमेंडेशंस थी या जो रोल था, दैट वाज नॉट दैट क्रिटिकल बिकॉज सेंटर हैड अदर मीन्स और सोर्सेज टू कॉम्पनसेट टू द स्टेट्स. ठीक है, कि और भी अलग ये सोर्स थे सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के पास कि स्टेट्स को कॉम्पनसेट कर सकती थी. नाउ व्हाट वर द सोर्सेज और इंटेंडेड टू प्ले फेवराइट्स थ्रू प्लान फाइनेंसिंग. वी हैड प्लानिंग कमीशन बिफोर 1st January 2015. Fine. When came the Niti Aayog, which replaced Planning Commission. So yes, plan financing, because under Planning Commission, the major distinction between Planning Commission and Niti Aayog is that Planning Commission even had the right to disburse funds, fine, but Niti Aayog has is not endowed with such kind of rights. उसके पास इस तरह के rights नहीं है. ठीक है. And public sector undertakings investment. So दो sources थे सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के पास. एक तो प्लान, दैट इज प्लानिंग कमीशन अवार्ड यहाँ actually used to transfer funds to the states in need, and second was PSU investment, public sector undertakings, owned by central government or state governments. So central government used to make investment in the PSUs as well. So these were the two sources for sources to compensate the states. Now what happened after post reform? So fresh PSUs investment have thinned out and the Planning Commission was abolished in 2014. This led to the establishment of on 1st of January 2015 Niti Aayog. Fine. With the result that the Finance Commission remains virtually the sole architect of India's fiscal federalism today. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. With the abolishment of your this Planning Commission, now today if you see at present, Finance Commission is virtually the only sole authority or the body with respect to the fiscal federalism. ठीक है. Its responsibility and influence are therefore much larger today. Fine. Of course, if you have all the authority or power, your responsibility also increases. So issue will be about horizontal distribution now. So tough task, as the headline says, title of this article says that next Finance Commission will have a tough task. So tough task in what sense? So this is the beginning. Issue will be about horizontal distribution. First is horizontal, means between states. Okay. Currently the center gives away 41% of its tax pool to the states. ठीक है. So आप लोगों को पता होगा कि 14th Finance Commission ने 42% distribute किया था, provision किया था to give to the states from the center, and जो 15th Finance Commission है इसने भी उस फिगर को सेम ही रखा, that is 42%, but change इस लेवल पे आया कि 41% for the rest of the states and 1% has been kept exclusively for the state, not the state but now the UTs of Ladakh and the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. Fine. So the 42%, that is 41%, remained to be, were distributed to the states or devolved to the state. 41% of the share was devolved to the states, rest of the states, and the 1% of 14th Finance Commission 42% shares, which even 15th Finance Commission kept the same figure of 42%, but the distinction is this 1% went to the UTs of Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir. Fine. For sure, states will demand that this proportion be raised. Of course, states यही चाहेंगे कि इस जो 41 फिगर है इसको upward revision की जाए, 42, 44, 45 तक ले जाए, ठीक है, even 50 तक. But he says कि I do not see much room for stretching this further given the center's expenditure needs and the constraints on its borrowing. कहते हैं कि states तो जरूर ऐसा कहेंगे कि बढ़ाओ, ठीक है, because ये एक you can say कि एक अच्छा source of revenue हो जाता है states के लिए, ठीक है, but center के पास ये कहते हैं कि I don't see much room that lies with the center कि center considering the center की अपनी खुद की expenditure है because you know post pandemic economy recovery के लिए capex investment is must and that capex investment in no initially would be done primarily by the central government alongside the states, but of course central government would take the charge. And alongside that the second thing he says is the constraints on its borrowing limit, because we are already we have already you see that our debt to GDP ratio is already around 22 to 25% more than the stipulated debt to GDP ratio should be according to the FRBM. That is, it should be in aggregate, that is general government debt to ratio. When I say general government means I am referring to center as well as the states in combined. Fine. So this general government debt to GDP ratio according to FRBM should be 60%, that is 40 plus 20, 40 for center and 20 for states. But already today we are having around the figure of 84% of debt to GDP ratio. You can see that this ratio is already breaching this 60% limit of FRBM. So of course government is not left with much room to go for further borrowing, fine, considering our debt to GDP ratio, which is already 25% almost more than what has been, what it should have been according to the FRBM Act, fine. So that's why he is saying that I don't see much room that lies with the center, fine, to go for further borrowing and all, fine. And therefore much of the debate will center on the horizontal distribution, fine. So कहते हैं कि इस वजह से since center के पास अगर ज़्यादा रूम नहीं है, it means जो वर्टिकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की हम बात कर रहे हैं वहाँ पे कुछ खास चेंजेस हमारे को देखने को नहीं मिलने वाले. दैट इज गोइंग टू रिमेन समवेयर इन द रेंज ऑफ 42% और 43% लेट अस से, और इवन एट 41%. सो वहाँ पे हमें बहुत ज़्यादा चेंज नहीं देखने को मिल रहा है. सो इफ वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू सी मच चेंज एट द लेवल ऑफ वर्टिकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, सो लेट अस फोकस ऑन द हॉरिजॉन्टल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नाउ, ठीक है, दैट इज बिटवीन द स्टेट्स. सो कहते हैं कि देयरफॉर मच ऑफ द डिबेट विल सेंटर ऑन द हॉरिजॉन्टल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन फार्मूला, फाइन, कि हॉरिजॉन्टल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन दैट इज टू डिस्ट्रीब्यूट this tax devolution between the respective states. So states के बीच में डिवॉल्व करने के लिए क्या different parameters यहाँ this formula होना चाहिए, ठीक है. So focus will be on this thing. When the previous finance commission was appointed in 2017, you can see previous finance commission, that is 15th finance commission, gave its award for the 2 time periods. This happened for the first time in the Indian history because of the corona pandemic. Because it gave award for first 2021, it gave award for 2 time periods. Remember 15th Finance Commission, first for 2020 and 21, and then for 21 to 26. I am referring this. These are fiscal years basically. ठीक है. So it gave its award in for 2 different time periods considering the pandemic and corona time. ठीक है. But see, 2020 में अवार्ड दिया, बट 2017 में अपॉइंटमेंट हुई, मीन्स 3 years प्रायर अपॉइंटमेंट हो जाती है, बिकॉज लॉट्स ऑफ थिंग्स नीड टू बी टेकन इनटू अकाउंट, लॉट्स ऑफ डिस्कशन, deliberations to be done with the respective states. All the states are taken into into this confidence before coming up with any particular, let us say, decision or final award, fine. So it's become imperative that such kind of commissions to be established in advance, let us say 2-3 years prior to what actually the president should come up with, like every 5 years. So of course 17 5 years, 17 20 22. So 22 23 में of course next finance commission constitute हो जाना चाहिए, ठीक है. So that's why he is saying in coming few months we will see this to be constituted. Its terms of reference, yes, this is very important. Its terms of reference became quite contentious. So terms of reference होती है जिस 4-5 terms of reference दी जाती है कि भाई इन points को consider करते हुए आपने final award जो आपने देना है उसको देना है. Means final जो भी आपकी award होगी, जो भी recommendations होगी, वो देने से पहले इन points को consider करना है, ठीक है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल उसमें काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें हो सकती है. लेट अस से कि जो स्टेट्स हैं उनकी फाइनेंशियल कैपेसिटी कितनी है, ठीक है, फाइनेंशियल हेल्थ क्या स्टेटस क्या है इस टाइम पे स्टेट्स की, सेंटर की क्या है. अलॉन्ग साइड दैट इवन प्रेसिडेंट कैन आस्क फॉर फर्दर एनी स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट्स टू कंसिडर. अलॉन्ग साइड दैट इट माइट बी आस्क, लाइक 15th फाइनेंस कमीशन की कंटेंशन इशू एक था कि अभी तक फाइनेंस कमीशन 1971 के सेंसस को कंसीडर करते थे, बट फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम द गवर्नमेंट आस्क्ड द 15th फाइनेंस कमीशन टू गो फॉर go with the population census of 2011 and not the 1971. This was a major change from between the 15th Finance Commission and the other past finance commissions. Fine. Okay, so this much. This was a contentious issue. It became contentious issue in the sense that Finance Commission was asked to consider 2021 population census, and this posed a great you can say a perverse incentive. It act like a perverse incentive to states to neglect, especially this issue was raised by the southern states because they took it like a perverse incentive by the central government, because this goes against the family planning. Let us say some states are doing better on the family planning or the population control measures. So अगर सपोज यूपी की पॉपुलेशन 21-22 करोड़ है, अगर किसी सदर्न स्टेट की पॉपुलेशन 2 या 4 करोड़ है और उस स्टेट ने पिछले 10 सालों में अपनी पॉपुलेशन को ग्रोथ रेट को स्टेबलाइज किया है, कम किया है, ठीक है, ग्रोथ रेट कम है यूपी कंपेरेटिवली, सो वुड दैट पर्टिकुलर स्टेट व्हिच हैज टेकन अ गुड पॉलिसी मेजर्स बी compensated or penalized? That was the question. If any state is coming up with a good policies, it should naturally be incentivized, not to be penalized. But 2011 census consider करके it seemed like you are penalizing the states which are actually taking good policy measures or coming up with the good family planning measures and restricting or constricting their population growth. Fine, I hope you understood this much. Okay, so it was asked to take into account 2011 population census. Fine, this was a departure from the standard practice until then of Magnetic Finance Commission to use the 1971 population numbers. This is what I have already told you. So as not to give a perverse incentive to states to neglect family planning. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, with an eye on higher share of devolution. So perverse incentive states को ना हो. Perverse is something morally, you can say, bad or corrupt. Fine, something which is morally bad or even wrong. ठीक है. So इसलिए like perverse subsidy we say, ठीक है, negative kind of subsidy or morally bad subsidies. So states which had done well in stabilizing population growth rates, typically the southern states of course protected against this change in the base year, calling it a penalty for good performance. Yes, so basic protest was by the southern states, fine, because they to a greater extent control their population growth with family planning measures compared to the northern states. Fine. So a similar conflict ये कहते हैं कि can conflict arises with regard to revenue deficit grants. ठीक है, revenue deficit grant again a contentious issue है कि किस state को कितनी revenue grant देनी है, again a measure of contention, contentious. ठीक है. Okay, regard to revenue deficit grants, that the Finance Commission awards to states which remain in deficit on the current account even after tax devolution. Of course, revenue deficit grants means whenever a certain state is facing a deficit on its revenue side, means it has more of expenditure than its revenue generation. So of course, in such kind of scenario, Finance Commission recommends for additional revenue deficit grants apart from the tax devolution. ठीक है. So in theory, revenue deficit grants have a neat rationale that every state in a country should be able to provide a minimum level of services to its residents, even if it involves an element of cross subsidization. Fine. So ये कहते हैं कि जो revenue grant है, that has a you can say a neat and clean rationale है, good rationale, but that every state in the country should be provided with a minimum level of resources or services in order to make it or to provision minimum level of services for its residents or citizens, even if it involves an element of cross subsidization. Cross subsidization, I hope you understand. For example, giving free electricity or let us say water, free electricity for irrigating purposes to farmers. So you are on the one hand giving them electricity at free or minimum rates, let us say even free. For example, in Punjab, farmers are getting this electricity for running their pumps at free, totally freely. ठीक है. So in this sense, government is cross subsidizing the electricity charges. Why so? Because on one hand, government is giving it at a 0 rupee to the farmers, but on the other hand it is also revising or this tariff rates on the corporate sector, let us say commercial utilization, fine, or even to the let us say household uses. So of course cross subsidizing means taking more from one side, let us say corporate or commercial sector, and then you are compensating or giving the free to the other. It means you are not at all losing your revenue generation from the electricity tariff, but just cross subsidizing. ठीक है, एक को फ्री दे रहे हैं, दूसरे से ज़्यादा ले रहे हैं. ठीक है, घर से तो सरकार देगी नहीं, सीधी सी बात है. Okay, so the worry is that this too has become a perverse incentive. So कह रहे हैं कि जो ये first was population census, he said that was a perverse issue or perverse incentive. Second is, even he is saying that the worry is that this too has become a perverse incentive. What? Even this revenue deficit grant has become perverse incentive, that is morally bad incentive. Okay? So why bother raising? Now his question is, why bother raising? Of course, because why this he labeled it as a perverse incentive, because this will let us say disincentivize the states to raise their own revenue sources, fine, because they would be like, okay, center is or finance commission is giving us this revenue deficit grant, then of course we can be little you can say, of course, not focusing that much on garnering additional funds or revenues. So why bother raising revenues on your own when the finance commission will compensate you? बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि जब कोई सामने से आपको पैसे देने के लिए तैयार है तो आप कमाना क्यों चाहोगे, सीधी सी बात है ना. So historically finance commission have struggled to determine how much a state, so कहते हैं कि historically finance commissions ने struggle किया इस चीज को determine करने में कि how much a state's deficit is due to its fiscal incapacity and how much is due to fiscal irresponsibility. So there are two certain terms, fiscal incapacity कि जो state है वो fiscally incapable है, and secondly fiscal irresponsibility. These are two different sets of things. First is incapacity, आप capable ही नहीं हो, ठीक है. Suppose आपके पास resources जो है limited है, source of revenue generation limited है, ठीक है. सपोज कोई बैकवर्ड स्टेट है या हिली एरियाज हैं, समथिंग लाइक जहाँ पे एडिशनल रेवेन्यू सोर्सेज बहुत ही रेस्ट्रिक्टेड हैं. एंड फिजिकल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फिजिकली रिस्पॉन्सिबल स्टेट्स आर दोज हु हैव मोर ऑफ एक्सपेंडिचर, लेट अस से अनवांटेड एक्सपेंडिचर और वेस्टफुल एक्सपेंडिचर देन एक्चुअली द रिसोर्सेज दे आर मोबिलाइजिंग और द रेवेन्यूज दे आर जनरेटिंग, फाइन. So they have tried to tweak the distribution formula to support deficit states without penalizing reasonable responsible states, a mathematically impossible task since you cannot give more to a state without giving less to another. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. Pareto optimality, there is a concept in economics, welfare economics, fine. You cannot give more to a state without giving less to another. कि mathematically में ऐसा है जैसे क्रॉस सब्सिडाइजेशन, आप एक को फ्री में तभी दे सकते हो जब दूसरे से चार्ज करोगे, ज़्यादा चार्ज करोगे, fine. Then the equation would be in balance. So this is what he is saying कि mathematically it is impossible task, that you cannot give more to a state without giving less to another state, fine. अगर किसी को 100 में से 60 रुपए दे रहे हो तो it means कि दूसरे स्टेट को 40 रुपए ही दे रहे हो, fine. You cannot give more to one without giving less to the other mathematically. The net result is that every horizontal distribution formula has been criticized as being inefficient or unfair or both. So net result क्या है कि जो horizontal distribution है, that is the distribution of funds between the states, has been criticized as being inefficient or unfair or both. ठीक है, बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. These fault lines across the states have in effect deepened in recent years along political, economic and fiscal dimensions. So कहते हैं कि ये fault lines over the years हमें देखने को मिला कि deepen ही हुआ है between the different states, especially taking into account the political and fiscal dimensions, political, economic and fiscal dimensions. For example, when the BJP lost the Karnataka election last month, many political commentators or the pundits read that as North-South divide. Fine. So losing of BJP in Karnataka was labeled as the North-South divide. You can see this. To what extent the people can do harm than good. Fine. It was labeled as North-South divide, with the BJP being confined to the northern states, while the opposition parties rule the southern states. ठीक है. Further, why this is a divide? because there are certain economic aspect to this as well. Similarly, many headline numbers suggest that the southern states of the country are doing better in terms of infrastructure, private investments, social indicators and the rule of law, which has put them on a virtuous cycle of growth and prosperity and widen the north-south gap. ठीक है, सो कुछ और कमेंटेटर्स हैं वो ये कहते हैं कि भाई ऐसा है कि सदर्न स्टेट जो है वो फार बेटर कर रही है नॉर्दर्न स्टेट से इन टर्म्स ऑफ, यहाँ मेंशन है फॉर एग्जांपल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट, लेट अस से एफडीआई अट्रैक्ट मोर कर रही, ज़्यादा एफडीआई आ रहा है इन स्टेट्स को. ऑफ कोर्स कर्नाटका इज द लीडिंग एफडीआई, वन ऑफ द लीडिंग्स एफडीआई दिस gainer. Then social indicators and the rule of law. Social indicators, for example, Kerala, the highest literacy in the country. Now, the better health infrastructure than the country. Fine. So, of course, and rule of law. So, कहते हैं कि this has put them on a virtuous cycle of growth and prosperity and widen again the north and south gap or divide. ठीक है. The bottom line is something which is most important to consider for a given situation, let us say. So, bottom line is most important consideration at a given point of time. So, bottom line here is that it is in the very nature of horizontal distribution that richer states compensate poorer states. How to ensure that this happen without deepening the divide will challenge the government in defining the terms of reference of the Finance Commission. तो यहाँ पे सुब्बाराव जी कह रहे हैं कि bottom line ये है कि the very nature of horizontal distribution is that the richer states actually compensate the poorer states. Again, an example of cross subsidization. So, how to ensure that this happens, that richer states compensate the poorer states, will be a challenging task for the government to frame the terms of reference of the coming Finance Commission. ठीक है? And of the Finance Commission itself in delivering on those terms of रेफरेंस. तो ये दोनों के लिए चैलेंजिंग टास्क है गवर्नमेंट के लिए भी कि टर्म्स ऑफ रेफरेंस जो सेट कर रही है आने वाली फाइनेंस कमीशन के लिए, 16 फाइनेंस कमीशन के लिए, कंसीडरिंग दिस डिवाइड एंड ऑल गैप बिटवीन नॉर्थ एंड साउथ, एंड itself it would be challenging for the finance commission in because it has to take into account all these terms of references while delivering on those terms. Fine, awarding giving is award. Okay. Now, the second issue is cesses and surcharges. Okay. Cess and surcharge. Before I further go into this, first let me tell you about cess and surcharge. Fine. So, what exactly is a cess and surcharge? किसी को कोई idea? You can put the same in the comment section. ठीक है. So, cess is something like it is imposed for a specific purpose. Let us say cow cess, education cess. So जो भी इसे collections होती है वो सीधा उस particular purpose के लिए use किया जाता है. ठीक है. Education cess, as the name suggests, कि जो भी इससे revenue generate होगा वो education purpose के लिए जाएगा. Cow cess, so for the protection of cows. ठीक है. But surcharge is tax on tax. Let us say high net worth जो individuals हैं जिसकी income इंडिया में 10 करोड़ से ज़्यादा है, and maximum जो हमारी tax limit है that is let us say upper band में that is 30% on those who are earning beyond 1 crore. Fine. So those who are making 10 crore or 50 crore then what? वो भी 30% ही देंगे? No. They are the high net worth individuals, so they would be asked to pay additional surcharge, that is tax on tax, 30% of tax plus for 1 to 10 crores earning, or let us say 5 to 10 crore earnings, you have to pay tax, additional tax on that tax, that which you have already paid in the form of 30% tax. So you might be asked to pay additional 10% or 20% tax. Fine. So this is called surcharge. Fine. The one issue is that the collections of both these cesses and surcharges goes exclusively to the center, fine, and not the states, remember. That's the another major issue in the fiscal federalism in India, that such kind of that in the past few months, not months, but in the recent times, in the years, of course, especially with the current establishment, when came into power, he is saying that the number of, you can say, the amount of cesses and surcharges collection has been, registered upward trend. Fine, even it gone beyond, twice. Fine, increased by twice the figure. Fine. So that's the issue, because these are meant not to be divided between central and states, goes exclusively to the states. So isn't it somewhere constricting or restricting or giving its upper hand to the center to garner more of the resources, and it is unfair with the states that because the best way to raise your revenue is to impose a tax, fine, because and if central government imposes tax on the citizens, it means both things, a bad politics as well as it might be bad economics, in the sense that more has to be compensated, or out of that more money would flow to the states than would remain with the center. So this is a side step, cess and surcharge, which exclusively goes to the center coffers and need not to share with the states. I hope now you are clear that why the trend has been more of imposition of cesses and surcharges, not to revise your tax rates upward, fine, because उस केस में सेंटर को स्टेट्स के साथ रेवेन्यू शेयर करना पड़ सकता है, पढ़ क्या सकता है, पड़ेगा ही, ठीक है, and that would be taken care of by the finance commission, ठीक है. So that's the issue with the cess and surcharge. This is what he has mentioned in this entire paragraph, ठीक है. So I have already explained you, need not to go again into that, but let us focus on a figure. He is saying that according to a figure, a white paper released by Tamil Nadu government couple of years ago pointed out that the proportion of cesses and surcharges in the center's total tax revenue had nearly doubled, fine. So this is the figure, important figure, from 10.4% in 2011-12 to 20.2% in 1920 to 2019 and 2020. So you can see कि how much change, almost twice, ठीक है. You can see from 10.5% to 20.2% increment note देखने को मिली है किसमें, cess and surcharge में. But this is the figure of Tamil Nadu government, not of any let us say independent body, fine. So we need to check it or So this is again, there is a perverse incentive in operation here. The straightforward option for raising revenue is to raise tax, of course. This is what I have told you already, fine. Instead of imposing more of cess and surcharges, the straightforward this step is to raise the taxes instead of going for more and more of cess and surcharge, fine. Okay, hold on. What happens? Okay, fine. So this again make the task of finance commission really challenging and tough, because now the finance commission will have to consider this thing as well. What's happening? Okay. Okay. So it is giving here an analogy. Suppose government imposes 100, let us say 1 rupee increment in tax, 1 rupee of additional tax, then it has to part with 14 paise to the states. Means 1 रुपया अगर कलेक्ट करती है सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट तो उसमें से 41% लेट अस से 41 पैसा जो है वो स्टेट्स को देना पड़ेगा. बट अगर सेस और चार्ज लगाती है 1 रुपया तो पूरा 1 रुपया जाएगा सेंटर को. सो यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड कि कहाँ पे फायदा कहाँ नुकसान है. On the other hand, if it raises additional rupee by way of surcharge, it gets to keep all of it, of course. So when the constitution was amended in the year 2000, giving a state a share in the center's tax pool, the implicit understanding was that the center will resort only sparingly to cesses and surcharges. This was an implicit understanding, not explicit, and not as a matter of routine as has become the practice. So he is criticizing, of course, this is a perverse again kind of thing. As a result of this breach of understanding, states have felt cheated out of their legitimate share of national tax revenue. ठीक है? The next finance commission should lay down guidelines for when cesses and surcharges might be levied and also suggest a formula to cap the amount that can be raised. ठीक है? So कहते हैं कि next finance commission के लिए भी important होगा कि वो guidelines they related to lay down the guidelines for कि कब सेस और सरचार्ज गवर्नमेंट लगा सकती है एंड हाउ मच, कितना. ठीक है? एंड पुट अ कैप ऑन द कैप द अमाउंट दैट कैन बी रेज्ड. सो कितना अमाउंट इसके थ्रू रेज किया जा सकता है. इट वुड बी अ गुड ऑगरी फॉर स्टेप एज वेल और गुड रिकमेंडेशन फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ दिस फाइनेंस कमीशन. ठीक है. Second is restraint on freebies. Fine. So I believe the forthcoming here he was saying that forthcoming finance commission should use this leverage to focus on two issues in particular. ठीक है. The first issue was according to him was this that we discussed, that is the first is the egregious practice by the center of increasingly resorting to levy of cesses and surcharges rather than raising taxes. So two issues could be of focus for this upcoming finance commission. First one was related to of course the surcharge and cess, and second he is leveling to restraint on freebies. The second issue of focus for the finance commission should be government spending on what has come to be called as freebies. All political parties are guilty on this account, some more than others, but trying to apportion blame will be wrong start. So in a poor country where millions of households struggle for basic human needs like us, it sounds cruel to argue against safety nets for the poor. So ये कहते हैं कि एक poor country में जहाँ पे millions of people still struggling for basic necessities or basic human needs, it sounds cruel to argue against safety nets for the poor. Fine, it's not good thing to argue that the government should not come up provide safety nets for the poor, but it is precisely because India is a poor country that we need to be more circumspect about freebies. But हम poor हैं इसलिए ये भी ज़रूरी है कि circumspect is unwilling to take risk. ठीक है कि हमें circumspect भी करना होगा कि हम freebies के फॉर्म में unwanted risk ना लें. ठीक है, otherwise हमें fiscal level पे उसका cost bear करना पड़ सकता है. In theory, the restraint imposed by the FRBM, that is Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act 2003, should have acted as a check on such populist spending, but governments have found ingenious ways of raising debt without it appearing in the budget books. ठीक है, it is not easy to unambiguously define a freebie, and any check on this will be contested as infringing on the sovereignty of elected governments. Nevertheless, the next finance commission should bite the bullet in the interest of long-term fiscal sustainability and lay down guidance on the spending on the freebies. So ये क्या कहते हैं इसमें? He is saying कि FRBM Act के according, of course in theory में FRBM Act अपने आप में एक restraint है governments पे, but further he says कि governments ने अलग तरीके की ingenious ways of raising debt ढूंढ लिया है. ठीक है, तो उसमें क्या है कि ये चीज़ें बजट में नहीं होती, बट अल्टीमेटली इट इज ट्रीटेड एज अ वेलफेयर मेजर, फाइन, फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट एस्पेक्ट, एंड बट कहते हैं एट द सेम टाइम पुटिंग एनी चेक ऑन दिस वुड इन्फ्रिंजिंग द सोवरेनिटी राइट्स ऑफ द इलेक्टेड स्टेट्स और द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ कोर्स. फिर भी नेवरदलेस नेक्स्ट फाइनेंस कमीशन शुड बाइट द बुलेट. बाइटिंग द बुलेट मीन्स taking some unpleasant step or let us say with the intention to improve, or come up with a better, let us say, fiscal, this health in the future. Fine, means taking some unfair, or let us say, which might seems to be unfair at this moment, but this will translate into a fair decision in the future. Fine, so biting the bullet is taking such kind of a decision at present in order to ensure better future. ठीक है, सो आफ्टर अगेन इलेक्शन की बात करते हैं. ठीक है, पॉलिटिक्स, लॉस ऑफ कर्नाटका इलेक्शन एंड ऑल, लेट अस नॉट गो अगेन टू दैट. सो ही इज सेइंग दैट द प्राइम मिनिस्टर शुड वॉक द टॉक एंड इन्वेस्ट हिज पॉलिटिकल कैपिटल टू शो दैट द प्रॉमिस ऑफ गुड गवर्नेंस कैन ट्रम्प द ल्यूर ऑफ फ्रीबीज. ठीक है, सो ये कहते हैं कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर, जो हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर साहब गुड गवर्नेंस की बात करते हैं, सो ही शुड वॉक द टॉक एंड शो दैट द प्रॉमिस ऑफ गुड गवर्नेंस कैन ट्रम्प द ल्यूर ऑफ फ्रीबीज. फ्रीबीज लाइक फ्री में इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, पावर, फ्री में पानी देंगे, फ्री में बिजली देंगे, फ्री में घर देंगे, फ्री में टीवी देंगे, सब कुछ फ्री में ही दे देंगे. ठीक है, आप भी एक दिन फ्री हो जाओगे. ठीक है, सो दैट विल एम्बोल्डन द फाइनेंस कमीशन टू फॉर्मलाइज अ मैकेनिज्म फॉर अ रिस्ट्रेंट ऑन फ्रीबीज. सो इसलिए एम्बोल्डन इज एनकरेजिंग द फाइनेंस कमीशन टू कम अप विद द मैकेनिज्म और फॉर्मलाइज अ मैकेनिज्म टू पुट रिस्ट्रेंट ऑन द फ्रीबीज. ठीक है, रिमेंबर दिस इज अ वेरी पॉपुलर सेइंग दैट व्हेन एवरीथिंग इज फ्री you are the commodity. ठीक है, so it's not like there is nothing like a free lunch. So if you are getting something for free, remember target is he, who, target is you basically in case of free things, ठीक है, or you might be the commodity itself. So next article is strengthening the ICDS scheme, ठीक है, ICDS. Before again I start this article, let me first give you some brief about the ICDS. So ICDS, Integrated Child Development Services Scheme, came in the year or launched in the year 1975. It's a too old scheme, remember, but still very much in use or very popular. So ICDS came up in the year 1975. It is a central sector sponsored scheme. Remember, not sector, is a sponsored. It is basically operationalized through Anganwadi centers, ठीक है, and the focus or the major aim of this scheme has been on on protecting the children, let us say, and empowering the mothers, ठीक है, taking care of the children's health, at the same time empowering the mothers, ठीक है. So this is the basic aim or objective of this scheme has been of course this much is basics. Let us start with the article now. Notwithstanding the contention regarding the assessment method of various global surveys, it is true that India's high prevalence of stunting, wasting and anemia. Now what are these three terms? So stunting is low height for your age, ठीक है, कि उम्र के हिसाब से आपकी हाइट कम है. Wasting is low weight for your height, हाइट ज़्यादा है पर weight कम है, ठीक है. And anemia is, of course, it's a deficiency of red blood cells in your blood, RBC, fine, anemic or anemia. Continues to pose public health risk for children and women. So of course the focus or aim was on the children and women. So they are underlining that indeed these are the areas which still pose a serious challenge or continues to pose public health risk for children and women. India must therefore strengthen its existing social sector schemes such as ICDS to tackle this. The ICDS targets children aged between 0 to 6 years, pregnant women and lactating mothers, ठीक है. So remember the focus areas or the group covered under this scheme. I repeat, children aged between just 0 to 6 years, pregnant women and lactating mothers, ठीक है. So three core groups. Addresses non-formal preschool education and breaks the cycle of malnutrition, morbidity and mortality, ठीक है. So these are the issues which basically are addressed by ICDS. Okay, so what studies show? Empirical research highlights the correlation between early life poverty, malnutrition and inadequate stimulation and later cognitive and economic challenges. Of course, अगर बचपन से यहीं गरीबी हो and malnutrition deficiency हो nutrition की, so of course this will translate into the later part of your life and it will of course it will be reflected in the cognitive and economic aspect of a human life as that human this citizen as well or a particular group as well. So studies have shown that intervention focusing on nutrition, education and health during early childhood can significantly improve human capital. Indeed, in the earlier let us say in the formative years, then focus on these areas, let us say nutrition, education and health, can better give you an outcome or better make human capital for any country. Fine. A study published in World Development demonstrated the ICDS positive impact on cognitive achievement, especially among girls and those from economically weaker section or disadvantaged families. So this has been a positive. World Development demonstrated ICDS positive impact. ICDS positive impact on especially the girl child or among girls from economically disadvantaged families. Another peer-reviewed study in the University of Chicago press journals found that children who were exposed to ICDS during the first 3 years of life, children who were exposed to ICDS, this scheme, children who were exposed to ICDS during the first 3 years of life, this is a study of University of Chicago, completed 0.1 to 0.3 more grades of schooling than those who were not, ठीक है. So उन्होंने comparative in comparison sum 0.1 से 0.3 more grades of schooling than those who were not, means 1 से 3 क्लास उन्होंने ज़्यादा पढ़ाई की, ठीक है. एक क्लास 3 यहाँ up to 3 grades you can say or classes studied more than those who are not covered under this ICDS. Further, in a study published in the Natural Literacy of Medicine, it was found that adolescents aged between 13 to 18 who were born in villages with proper ICDS implementation showed 7.8% increased likelihood of a school enrollment and completed an average of 0.8 additional grades compared to their peers who did not have access to. So again, further positive results, you can say 7.8% increased likelihood of a school enrollment with the adolescent aged group between 13 to 18 years of age, those who were the part of ICDS. As we comment the remarkable strides made by ICDS, it is imperative to acknowledge the pressing need for a thorough reassessment of our approach. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि हम जब कोई चीज़ अच्छी दिखती है, हमें सब कोई अच्छा अच्छा कहता है, तो इसमें नहीं उड़ जाना कि हाँ भाई सब कुछ अच्छा ही है, but we need to stop and check it out that where the things could be improved. ठीक है, that is equally important. That's what they are saying, that we need to have a thorough assessment of this whole process or approaches towards such social welfare schemes or initiatives. Okay. Now, despite 4 decades of relentless efforts, ठीक है, despite 4 decades of 40 years of relentless efforts, the ICDS still faces the Herculean task of ameliorating the nutritional and health outcomes for children aged between 0 to 6 years. So abhi bhi issue hai, not all not everything is rosy, not all is well, not all is good. There are certain things which are still needs to be improved upon, and these are the areas especially related to nutrition and health outcomes. A significant first step, now the suggestions. They are not just discussing the problems but also providing the solutions. A significant first step towards fortifying the program is to empower Anganwadi workers. Anganwadi workers, as I said initially, this ICDS is basically at the ground level being implemented through the Anganwadi centers. Okay? You might have seen at the village level Anganwadi centers, fine, engaged in taking care of the children in this age group and pregnant women and even lactating mothers. Though the cornerstone of ICDS, they are frequently stretched beyond their limits. Anganwadi centers we are talking about, or Anganwadi workers. As a principal operatives in the Poshan 2.0 initiative, I hope you remember that now we are going with the Poshan 2.0. These workers bear the onus of advancing child nutrition, health and education in their communities. Their roles vary widely from employing modern technology like smartphones and applications to practical tasks such as delivering health education, managing feeding programs and liaising with auxiliary nurse midwives and other healthcare professionals. So auxiliary nurse midwives, all that taking care of the delivery of women at the level of villages or the grassroots level. So you can see that they are emphasizing on the roles of basically Anganwadi workers, fine, that they are performing lots of tasks, alongside they are facing challenges as well. So advantages of more workers. क्या advantages होंगे more workers के? Okay, an additional Anganwadi worker could be added to each of India's this much Anganwadi centers we have today. So advantages of more workers. So an additional Anganwadi workers could be added to each of India's 13,99,661 Anganwadi centers to lessen the load of these workers. ठीक है, so ये कहते हैं कि ये जो almost 14 lakhs जो हमारे आंगनवाड़ी centers हैं और 14 lakh additional workers could be added to this one worker each to this Anganwadi centers in order to lessen the load of already existing workforce. Implementing this approach could yield at least 5 advantages. Okay, means single step can result in 5 advantages. You can see this. So let us go with one by one. First is, it would lead to better health and educational outcomes. A large scale randomized controlled trial by, of course, this is a trial given by in Tamil Nadu, a survey kind of things. Okay? So it was a random trial. Now what is the result of this? Let us see. It is more important. Conducted to evaluate the effect of increasing staff levels within the ICDS framework revealed significant outcomes. The addition of a half time worker effectively double the net preschool instructional time. ठीक है, so addition of a half time worker, not full time worker, effectively doubled the net preschool instructional time, which led to improvements in maths and language test scores for children enrolled in the programs. Okay, so इस trial ने ये prove किया. So second is children who remained enrolled also exhibited reduced rates of child stunting and severe malnutrition. ठीक है, so जो children जो enrolled रहे throughout these years, so they've shown less exhibited reduced rates of child stunting. I have already said stunting is low height for age and severe malnutrition. So इन दोनों front में positive चीज देखने को मिली है. Third, the cost of nationwide rollout of this model is relatively insignificant in comparison to the potential advantages offered. So कहते हैं कि always जो major concern है किसी भी policy program का, that is a cost. So कहते हैं कि इस पे अगर एक हम addition करें तो there won't be much cost as compared to the potential advantages that it will offer. The estimated long-term benefits based on expected improvement in lifetime earnings would be around 13 to 21 times. So expected जो improvement है in lifetime earnings, ठीक है, by adding one more worker to all of these 14 lakhs Anganwadi centers would result into around 13 to 21 times the expenses. ठीक है, सो हमारे को 13 to 21 टाइम्स बेटर रिजल्ट देखने को मिल सकते हैं कंपेयर टू द एक्सपेंसेस. मीन्स 1 रुपये अगर लगा रहे हैं तो हमारे को एडवांटेज जो है वो 13 से 21 रुपये के बराबर मिल सकती है. दिस इज व्हाट इज दे आर सेइंग. नाउ द फोर्थ, रिमेंबर इट्स नन बट विवेक देबरॉय जी. ही इज अ चेयरमैन ऑफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर इकोनॉमिक एडवाइजरी काउंसिल, एंड आदित्य सिन्हा जी, ही इज करंट additional private secretary to the this advisory council. Further, fourth, the new Anganwadi workers can be given the responsibility of concentrating only on preschool and early childhood education. So इनको जो भी न्यू हायरिंग होगी उनकी सिर्फ रोल या उनको ये कहा जा सकता है कि आप एक्सक्लूसिवली कॉन्सेंट्रेट कहाँ करो, प्री स्कूल, ठीक है, एंड अर्ली चाइल्डहुड एजुकेशन पे. दिस वुड अलाउ एग्जिस्टिंग वर्कर्स टू डेडिकेट मोर टाइम टू चाइल्ड हेल्थ and nutrition. It would also enable Anganwadi workers to expand their outreach and serve a larger number of families. ठीक है, so all positive things they are underlining. Fifth is, apart from improving the well-being of rural communities, this would create job opportunities for local residents. ठीक है, so it will also create, of course, एक लोग अगर 14 लाख सेंटर्स पे अगर आंगनवाड़ी सेंटर्स पे एम्प्लॉयड होते हैं तो ऑफ कोर्स जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज 14 लाख के लिए तो बढ़ गई. ओके, particularly women, yes, because more of the Anganwadi workers of course are women, more or majority you can say. It would lead to the creation of almost 1.4 million new jobs, 1.3 million they are, I mean 13 lakhs. The operationalization of the Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.1 proposal hinges on its status as a centrally sponsored scheme. Another issue is the operationalization of Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0 proposal hinges on its status as a centrally sponsored scheme. जब भी सेंटर की स्पॉन्सर्ड स्कीम हो, उस मीन्स सेंटर एंड स्टेट हैज टू बियर द फंडिंग एंड ऑल एवरीथिंग. ठीक है, सो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ओवरसी इट्स state governments oversee its execution including administration, management and monitoring. Consequently, Anganwadi centers recruitment falls under their jurisdiction. So कहते हैं कि जो 13 लाख रिक्रूटमेंट करनी है ये किसको करनी होगी? स्टेट्स को, गाइडेड बाय रेगुलेशन रीजन स्पेसिफिक क्राइटेरिया. ठीक है, ओके. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, data have shown a significant variation in implementation of the ICDS and the level of skills of Anganwadi workers. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, skills of Anganwadi workers vary across the states. This requires further investment in the training program. ठीक बात है. Additionally, the exigency for infrastructural improvement in India's Anganwadi centers cannot be overstated. Okay, so there is urgent need for improving the infrastructure in the Anganwadi centers. A disconcerting 2.5 lakh centers operate without functional sanitation facilities. So कंसर्न ये है कि 2.5 लाख आंगनवाड़ी सेंटर्स ऐसे हैं दे आर ऑपरेटिंग विदाउट फंक्शनल सैनिटेशन फैसिलिटीज एंड 1.5 लाख सेंटर्स लैक एक्सेस टू पोर्टेबल वाटर, पीने का पानी नहीं है 1.5 लाख आंगनवाड़ी सेंटर्स पे। अप्रोक्सीमेटली 4.5 लाख आंगनवाड़ी सेंटर्स डू नॉट पोजेस देयर ओन पक्का बिल्डिंग, ठीक है। सो झोपड़ी में चल रहे हैं, ऑलमोस्ट 4.25 लाख जो आंगनवाड़ी सेंटर्स हैं उनके पास अपनी खुद की पक्का बिल्डिंग नहीं है, ठीक है। To unlock the ICDS full potential and address persistent issues, it is essential therefore to revisit and re-evaluate its strategies and implementation issues. Empowering Anganwadi workers is just a start, ठीक है। So कहते हैं कि the empowering Anganwadi workers would be a fresh beginning or a start in this direction for improving this ICDS or other welfare schemes in India. A very good piece of article, you should read it or revise it, ठीक है। नेक्स्ट अगेन एक्सप्लेनर पेज फ्रॉम द हिंदू एंड दैट इज रिलेटेड टू द स्टेटस ऑफ ट्रांसजेनिक क्रॉप्स इन इंडिया। नाउ व्हाट आर द ट्रांसजेनिक क्रॉप्स? फर्स्ट लेट मी टेल यू अबाउट दिस। सो ट्रांसजेनिक क्रॉप्स आर बेसिकली जीएम क्रॉप्स, ट्रांसजेनिक जिसमें कि जीन्स की मॉडिफिकेशन करते हैं, टू विच ऑल्सो कॉल इट जेनेटिकली मॉडिफाइड क्रॉप्स, ठीक है, ओके, जिसमें एक्चुअली जो रिकॉम्बिनेट डीएनए है उसमें चेंज करके डिफरेंट जीन्स की ब्रीडिंग की जाती है अक्रॉस क्रॉस ब्रीडिंग एंड देन इट रिजल्ट्स इन द इम्प्रूवमेंट ऑफ इन ओवरऑल प्रोडक्टिविटी ऑफ द पर्टिकुलर क्रॉप और प्रोडक्ट यू सी इंक्रीज इन द यील्ड ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर क्रॉप, ठीक है। सो दिस इज ट्रांसजेनिक क्रॉप्स। नाउ लेट अस स्टार्ट विद द फर्स्ट द स्टोरी सो फार, द स्टेटस सो फार। सो 3 states Gujarat, Maharashtra and Telangana have deferred a proposal approved by the Center's Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee (GEC) to test a new kind of transgenic cotton seed that contains a gene Cry2AI. Remember this gene is important from the exam point of view. So story ये है कि 3 states ने गुजरात, महाराष्ट्र एंड तेलंगाना, ठीक है, दो तो सेम सेंटर रूल्ड सेम पार्टी रूल्ड स्टेट्स हैं, ठीक है, वन इज अपोजिशन। सो यहाँ पे पॉलिटिक्स वाली बात नहीं कर सकते, ठीक है, कि इसलिए अपोज कर दिया क्योंकि वहाँ पे सरकार अलग दूसरी पार्टी की है, नॉट एट ऑल। सो GEC इज द हाईएस्ट अथॉरिटी यू कैन से द मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनवायरमेंट, फॉरेस्ट एंड क्लाइमेट चेंज, विच एक्चुअली अंडर दिस मिनिस्ट्री which actually approves or give recommendations with respect to the introduction of GM crops in India or any transgenic crops in. So GEC actually has recommended to test a new kind of transgenic cotton seed here, talking about that contains a gene named Cry2AI. Remember, we are talking about cotton seed and the gene contains here, the gene here is Cry2AI, ठीक है। Cry2AI means you can say Cry2AI, artificial intelligence cry कर रहा है 2 बारी, ठीक है। That purportedly makes cotton resistant. So focus area क्या है हमारा? Purportedly makes cotton resistant to pink bollworm, ठीक है, a major pest. So ये इसलिए हम कर रहे हैं modify और transgenic cotton की बात कर रहे हैं, cotton seed की, so that cotton जो है वो resistant बन जाए, किसके लिए? Pink bollworm. पिंक बॉलवर्म क्या है अब? इट्स अ काइंड ऑफ पेस्ट, ठीक है, मेजर पेस्ट। दिस कन्फ्लिक्ट शोज दैट अ ब्रॉड एक्सेप्टेंस ऑफ जेनेटिकली मॉडिफाइड क्रॉप्स कंटिन्यूज टू बी एलूसिव। बिल्कुल ठीक बात है। दिस इज शोइंग दैट दिस डेफरमेंट ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ द 3 states गुजरात, महाराष्ट्र एंड तेलंगाना shows that the broad acceptance of GM crops, genetically modified crops, continues to be elusive, ठीक है। Now what is the status of transgenic crops in India so far? Okay. So status of transgenic crops in India or GM crops in India. There are an array of crops, brinjal, tomato, maize, chickpea in various stages of trials that employs transgenic technology. Fine. So there are array of crops, brinjal, tomato, maize and chickpea in various stages of trial that employ this GM or transgenic technology. However, cotton remains the only transgenic crop that is being commercially cultivated in India. Remember this much. In UPSC you get the question like only cotton is only cotton as a cotton is the only transgenic crop in India that is being commercially cultivated. So it's at times we think that only might it's a kind of extreme statement, so this can be wrong, but here is correct. So not always the only is wrong. After a long hiatus, the GEAC, the apex technical body charged with evaluating proposals for testing genetically modified crops, seeds, approved the environmental release of mustard hybrid DMH11. ठीक है? So this was in news as well. Mustard Dhara, this 11 and its parental lines during its 147th meeting on 18th October 2022 for seed production and testing. This is one step away from full commercial cultivation. So जब GEAC किसी crop को specially approval दे देती है, तो this is just a step away from full commercial cultivation. ठीक है? अगर GEAC ने pass कर दिया, it means now the crop could be commercially cultivated. The next step would be to cultivate it commercially. However, the GEAC, which is under the Union Environment Ministry, isn't the final arbiter in the case of GM crops. But GEAC final arbiter नहीं है. This is just a recommendatory body, remember, because the ministry is Union Environment Ministry. So of course, this is under body under ministry. So of course, it could not have final say. There is a long-standing litigation in the Supreme Court on the permissibility of allowing transgenic food crops in farmer fields based on petitions filed by activist Aruna Rodriguez and Jean Campaign, an NGO. ठीक है? So there are of course PILs being filed in the Supreme Court against the introduction of transgenic or GM crops. Following the GEC approval for DMH, Dhara mustard 11 hybrid, the petitioners approached the apex court asking for a stay on the release of the crop because it would encourage farmers to spray herbicides which are banned in India. So इसलिए ये कोर्ट पहुंच जाते हैं petitioners की अगर धारा मस्टर्ड 11 जो है इसको अगर कमर्शियली इंडिया ने कल्टीवेट करना स्टार्ट कर दिया, फार्मर्स ने कर दिया, तो क्या होगा? This will lead to spray of herbicides which are basically banned in India. Hearings on this case are still ongoing. In 2017, GEAC had accorded a clearance for GM mustard. So 2017 में ही GEAC ने जेनेटिकली इंजीनियरिंग अप्रेजल कमिटी जो है जो जेनेटिकली मॉडिफाइड क्रॉप्स को अप्रूवल देती है, इसने क्लियरेंस दे दिया था किस लिए? GM मस्टर्ड के लिए. But went back on its decision and imposed additional tests. In 2010, the GEAC had approved GM brinjal, but this was put on an indefinite moratorium by the United Progressive Alliance government, UPA government then. So final say is not lies with the GEAC. It's a, you can say, recommendatory body. The final authority to introduce a product or let a product to be produced at a commercial level or stage is of course lies in the hands of either Union Ministry of Environment or the government itself. What is the process of regulating transgenic crops in India then? The process of developing transgenic crops is an elaborate one, as inserting transgenic genes into plants to elicit a sustained protective response is a mix of both science and chance. Of course, it's like a trial and error. पास हो गए तो ठीक है, वरना फेल भी हो सकते हैं. There are multiple safety assessments done by committees before they are cleared for further tests in open plots of lands, which are located at either agricultural universities or plots controlled by the ICA, that is Indian Council for Agricultural Research. So closed, you can say closely इसकी planting होती है, testing होती है before final commercial this approval or production at commercial level. With a transgenic plant can apply for commercial clearance only after it has proven to be demonstratively better than comparable non-GM variants on claimed parameters. ठीक है? So ये तभी approval दी जा सकती है GM crops को जब ये prove करे कि this is better than comparable non-GM variants on the respective claimed parameters जो भी mention किए. For instance, drought tolerance. Let us say कि plant जो है जो genetically modified crop है, drought tolerance है और insect resistance है. ठीक है? So in parameters पे without posing ecological harm to other species that may be being cultivated in the vicinity. बिल्कुल ठीक बात है कि जो लोग nearby species हैं ecological harm नहीं होना, ecologically harmful नहीं होना चाहिए ये introduction for the other species. Open field trials often take place over multiple crop seasons and types of geographical condition to assess its suitability across different states. So these are the of course kind of trials that took place. Why have Gujarat, Maharashtra and Telangana ripped off the GEAC? Now this is a question. The cotton seed has been developed by Hyderabad-based Bioseed Research India with pride to AI, which makes it resistant to pink bollworm. Or bollworm, pink bollworm is nothing but a pest. The first generation of transgenic cotton had been developed to ensure cotton against a more widespread. So first generation of cotton is already granted in India for this commercial production, and it was granted in order to ensure it or protect it from the pest called American bollworm. Currently we are talking about pink bollworm, not American bollworm. The Cry2A seed has passed preliminary confined trials and was recommended by GEC to be tested in farmers field at Telangana, Maharashtra, Gujarat and Haryana, even Haryana. But Haryana, since only 3 states has deferred, not Haryana, so we'll keep on track that what Haryana is actually doing. Agriculture being a state subject, of course this comes under state subject under 7th schedule. In most cases, companies interested in testing their seeds need approval from the state for conducting such tests. Only Haryana gave permission for such tests. So you can see out of 4, only Haryana gave the permission for further tests. This was after the GEC in October 2020 sent letters to all the states. Okay, not to go into that, what communication took place between the states and of course the GEC. Let us focus on the more important issues. So following the responses, the GEC had asked the Department of Biotech and ICA to jointly organize capacity building activities with regard to GM crops for appraising the state UT about the technology involved in and the regulatory framework in place for evaluation of the GM. So after a letter of exchange and communication between the states, the respective states, these 4 states and the GEC asked the Department of Biotech, Department of Biotechnology and the ICAR in Indian Council of Agricultural Research to jointly organize capacity building for such states and UTs. But activist groups objected to the GEC asking states to furnish reasons for disapproval and said that it was tantamount to a biased lobbying approach. According to Kavita Karuganti, a member of Coalition for GM Free India, are there changes in the offing process for regulation of GM crops? Means, is there any changes going to be introduced in the process of regulation of GM crops in India? So GEC, now little bit about GEC. GEC consists of a panel of plant biotechnologists and is headed by a senior official of the Environment Ministry. Fine, means you can head as an IS officer, and co-chaired by the scientists of the DBT. Okay? And this is co-chaired by scientists of the Department of Biotechnology. To resolve the issue of states not according approval on testing because of differing attitudes to GM crops, the GEC is considering a proposal by the DBT to declare some regions across India as notified testing sites. So they are trying to go beyond the states, going beyond the permission, asking for permission from those states, and rather Department of Biotechnology itself can declare some regions across the country, India, as notified testing sites. Okay? So there are 42 such proposed sites, and if it goes through, companies wanting to conduct trial of GM crops at these locations won't need the permission of the states for trials. Fine. So ये करके states को overstep कर सकते हैं, so that need not to ask every time for permission from the states for GM crops related trials. So again a good insight related to the GM issues and all. Okay, further moving to the next page, let us see if there are some miscellaneous things to discuss. Okay. Okay, Law Commission 6 fresh inputs on Uniform Civil Code. Already told you about second Law Commission. Yesterday asked for the citizens, suggestions and all, even to the religious groups. And Union government moves new HDI for 28 lakh vulnerable tribals. Okay, this is related modes अभी विचार कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, especially for the PM particularly vulnerable tribal groups. ठीक है. Okay. Okay. West Bengal on the ball. Okay. Need not to go into that. Panchayat elections and all in West Bengal. Okay. US trying to ensure India has exquisite defense tech envoy. Okay. Okay. देखते हैं नेक्स्ट पेजेस पे क्या है, अभी तो कुछ खास मिला नहीं. ओके, न्यूज़ कंजम्पशन फॉल्स इन इंडिया सेज स्टडी. Reuters Institute Digital News Report 2023 finds a sharp decrease in access to online news, while television too sees a decline as a news source. Globally, platforms such as TikTok are gaining ground as source of news among the youth. Trend of news avoidance continues in many countries. Okay, so आजकल की youth जो है वो TikTok और Instagram पे news ज़्यादा access कर रहा है instead of TV and online news portals and all. Fine. So this has been the data from the Reuters Institute Digital News Report 2023. Fine. So you can see the India का केस क्या है? News consumption trust declines. The latest Reuters Institute Digital News Report showed a modest decrease in the general trust in news in India in 2023 from the previous year's figures. Access to online news, including social media, the top source of news in India is the online news, also saw a decline. The chart shows the change in overall trust in news and the change in sources of news consumption in 2023 from the last. So access to online news sources 2023 में 38%, 2022 में 41% means decline. ठीक है, सो ऑनलाइन में देख सकते हो 2023 का रेड वाला यहाँ भी कम है, यहाँ भी कम हुआ है, यहाँ भी एंड यहाँ भी, एवरीवेयर यू सी फॉल. न्यूज़ कंजम्पशन की बात कर रहे हैं ऑनलाइन, सोशल मीडिया, इंस्टाग्राम, टिकटॉक एंड ऑल, टीवी एंड प्रिंट मीडिया लाइक फिजिकल कॉपी ऑफ योर न्यूज़पेपर. सो सबसे नीचे है प्रिंट मीडिया. ठीक है, यूपीएससी वाले ज़रूर इसको ऊपर ले जा सकते हैं. ठीक है, ओके. Okay. So ये several hurdles crossed. Second bridge in bullet train project completed. Bullet train, you know, proposed between Ahmedabad, this Gujarat and Maharashtra, Mumbai and Ahmedabad. So progress report है उस पे. ठीक है. Center has stopped sales of wheat and rice to state under OMSS, that is open market sales scheme. ठीक है. Okay. Now the world news: Trump, China, partner, competitor, and systematic rival, says German security strategy. Okay, so world politics now. Okay, so EU lawmakers give nod to plan on bloc's future AI regulations. If Brussels reaches an agreement by the year end, it would be the world's first law regulating AI. कल भी हमने देखा था HAP, हिरोशिमा AI प्रोसेस, जहाँ पे AI को रेगुलेट करने की बात चल रही है ग्लोबल लेवल पे. So every bloc or country is, you know, coming up with their own sets of regulatory measures. ठीक है. Now we have landed on May wholesale, this business page. May wholesale prices drop. So पहले हमने retail prices को follow होते देखा था, retail inflation को. Now we are seeing the same with, you know, wholesale prices as well. This is a good sign. So you can see wholesale price index remains in deflationary zone for a second month in a row on a high base. Economists note that from base effects there has been a sequential decline in wholesale prices on a seasonally adjusted basis. So base effect क्या होता है? Let us say May अगर 2023 की बात करें तो हम देखते हैं कि प्राइस कम हुआ है, ज़्यादा हुआ with respect to May 2022. So this May 2022 would act as a base for the May 2023 in net comparative terms. ठीक है? So falling prices, wholesale prices continue to fall for yet another month, driven by high base, with all categories of goods reporting deflation. Fuel and power price shrank 9.2%, helped by a reduction in fuel taxes. Deflation is likely to persist in June too, as WPI inflation was 16.2% in June 2022. So as I said, base effect June 2022 को June 2023 से compare करेंगे. Since यहाँ पे इसीलिए कहा गया कि high base was in May 2022. Like for example, in June 2022 it was 16.2% WPI inflation, but today if it drops to 4%, let us say, so of course we say that this was a high base effect, and because of high base effect, you know, in comparative terms, you see this is a better, you know, the current one is. So of course, high base effect could have, you know, this favorable effect on current level of WPI as well. Fine. Okay. Okay. Okay, so SBR, Sberbank lets individuals in Russia open rupee accounts, ठीक है. So Vostro and Vostro account, Nostro accounts, ठीक है, जहाँ पे बिना बैंक ब्रांच के वहाँ के बैंक, सपोज यहाँ हमारे पास SBI रशियन किसी कंपनी के यहाँ कुछ ऐसे अकाउंट ओपन कर सकते हैं विदाउट लेटिंग द यू नो और विदाउट द नीड फॉर रशियन बैंक टू ओपन इट्स सेपरेट ब्रांच इन इंडिया, ठीक है. For dealing in you know this exchanges, especially in rupee, let us say trade taking place in rupee terms, ठीक है. So we can have this kind of exchanges in rupee only, ठीक है. Okay, so finally we have landed on this page, the last sports page. So I think this much was important from today's newspaper, The Hindu of 15th June 2023. So that's it. I'll be stopping here. If you have any issue, anything, you can put the same in the comment section. And stay tuned for the tomorrow's Hindu analysis. Until then, take care, keep revising. Thank you.